Today we are discussing player order, or as it's commonly known, turn taking. Hi, I'm Jon. Welcome to this channel where we are serious about play and games. And in this series we will be looking into game design knowledge. Many of these examples will be about board games. But the knowledge is usable no matter what kind of games you're doing, if it's board games, computer games, LARPs, role-playing games or something else. Turn taking is about how the order works when one player starts and then the next follow, and so on. In its normal form, this is so common that it's really hard to explain, because in a way we already know this. Usually one player starts and the next one continues and so on, clockwise around the table. But this is not always the case. In some games, a turn is carried out by all players at once, such as in diplomacy. In these cases, it's quite common that the turn is separated into several phases. In diplomacy, first, all players have a diplomacy phase where they talk to each other and decide on their move. After this, they make their orders, and finally, they make the moves. And when making the moves, while for practical reasons, these might be carried out one player at a time, game-wise, they are all happening at the same time, and the results are calculated at one time. In Robo Rally, everybody programs their robots all at once, using cards with movements on them. And once this has been done, the cards are revealed, and the robots are moved according to the cards, using the priority on each card. But this is still not the only way to build your turns. Turns do not have to be evenly divided. A common example of this is golf, where the player furthest from the hole is the player playing next. And thereby, the amount of turns you get translates into points. And the goal is to have as few turns as possible, meaning as few points as possible, and thereby winning the game. Other examples of turn taking include getting another turn when you succeed, such as in memory, where if you find a pair, you get to do it another time. This is also common in a lot of pool games, where if you sink the ball, you get another turn. Or, as is common in many simple roll and move games, if you land on a special spot, you have to skip a turn. Yet another way is to let players bet or buy their turns, usually exchanging acting late for greater abilities in the game. This happens, for example, in the board game Citadels. So, a turn is often divided into phases. And a big difference is between if each player has a turn, and that turn is divided into phases for that player. Or the opposite, if a turn is divided into phases, and in each phase all players act. This can of course also be a combination, such as in Settlers of Catan, where one player is active, rolling the dice, but all players gain cards from that dice roll. Turn taking is common, and is something that needs to be carefully designed for all types of games, especially for board games. Of course, this takes one thing for granted, that your game contains turns. And while it's common, it's not always the case. If your game is turn-based, one more thing to consider is the length of a turn, because it can become very boring to be the non-active player. One way of solving this is to make sure that the design makes it into short turns. Another way is to have time limitations on the turns. Or a third possibility is to make sure that also the passive players have at least something they need to do during that moment of the game. So that's it for now. I hope this gave you some new knowledge and some new thoughts and ideas of what you could do. If you like this, you can check out more of the series over here, or you can check another random video over here. And do feel free to subscribe if you really like it. With that, go create, and I see you around.